White Springs Town Council regular council meeting to order, Tuesday, December 12th at 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the city council meeting and the people who are here with us today. Help us to make righteous decisions. In this last and Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call: Kizzy Burch, Lenny Pope,
Here.
Mary Berry,
Here.
Jacqueline Williams, Anita Rivers present. We have a quorum. We will continue with the agenda. Any additions, deletions, and or amendments to the agenda by the council? I will amend the agenda to remove, presentation up to, after the additions and deletions in front of the citizens from the floor. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I let it vote second.
I, Mary Berry, make a motion that we, approve, the agenda as amended.
Can I get a second on the motion?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. The agenda is approved as amended. Presentation by Mr. Caleb with Powell and Jones CPA to present the 2021 audit.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Let me take this. Oh. That's not helpful. Well, I think I can talk loud enough for it needs to be on the report.
Yeah, it does, kind of, right there is good.
Sweet spot? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well,
Can I have a,
Excuse me, Mr. Joe, we're not gonna have any outbursts. If you need
I'm not
something,
having any outbursts, I don't have a,
we're starting the agenda, so you raise your hand and ask one of the officers.
thank you, that's what I wanted.
Okay, continue, Mr. Caleb.
well, thank you for having me. We appreciate working on your audit. This is, like you said, the 2021 audit, which is a bit overdue. But, so, you know, this, your year end ends September 30th, 2021, so which at this point in time is 2 years after, slightly 2 years after that year end date. And, so basically it covers a period from 3 years to 2 years ago. On page 9, we're gonna start on page 7 of the report. So first, I'm the engagement partner. I'm one of the owners at Powell and Jones CPA. I was the partner who reviewed the work as it was done, and I'm gonna be presenting some of this information for you tonight from our audit report and these financial statements. So on page 7, we have our independent auditor's report. It says that we have audited the financial statements of the town of High Springs as White Springs, as of before the year ended September 30th, 2021, and that, and the related notes to the financial statements. It says, in our opinion, except for the possible effects of the matter discussed in the basis for qualified opinions and unmodified opinions section of our report, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the town. And as you may have remembered, the previous year there was a disclaimer of opinion, which basically says that we weren't able to say that the financial statements were accurate, but this year we bumped our opinion to a qualified opinion, which means that we think the financial statements are accurate except for maybe one area. And that's delineated further in the basis for qualified opinion paragraph, which says that the town did not maintain detailed property records, and that therefore, because our capital asset account balances, we're not certain of those, we weren't able to issue a full unmodified opinion, but that there's an issue there that could be causing material misstatement as far as we're concerned. But outside of that, the rest of the financial statements are accurate. Moving ahead to page 19.
Can you repeat that last sentence again before you move to page 19?
So this is
I just want everybody to hear it again.
yes, this is a qualified opinion. This is not an unmodified opinion. So we're not saying that the financial statements are 100% accurate. We're saying that localized in the area of fixed assets, that there could be a misstatement, but that the rest of the financial statements are accurate.
Thank you.
Okay. Page 19. This starts our financial statements. This is the governmental funds balance sheet. It says here that it has your total assets, your total liabilities, and your fund balances, which is the difference between those assets and liabilities. If you want to think about it, it's kind of like your net worth for the town for the year. You had assets like cash, $884,000, and other assets, which brought your total assets balance to $1,045,000. For liabilities, you had accounts, contracts, and accrued liabilities payable of $40,000. Amounts due to other funds, $189,000, and unearned grant revenue, $431,000. The total liabilities was $663,000. When you take that away from the $1 million that we talked about above as your assets, you're left with your net worth, which is $382,000. This is split up into two categories. The first is amounts that are restricted for transportation, which is $57,000. Those funds have to be used in your transportation department. And then you have your unassigned balances, which can be used to meet ongoing needs of the town, which is $324,000. When compared with your operating expenses, this represents approximately 5 months of operating expenses, so you have sufficient reserves in your general fund to meet ongoing operating needs. Down below this, there's a conversion to the accrual basis of accounting. It takes that $382,000 we just talked about and adds $3.6 million of capital assets and a liability for your compensated absences, which is like accrued vacation time for employees, and that brings your total net position or net worth on the full accrual basis of accounting to $4 million. Next page. Here we have our governmental fund statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is basically like a profit and loss for the year. It has your revenues or income and expenditures or expenses for the year. Some of the larger revenue categories are taxes, which were $437,000, and intergovernmental revenue, which is from other governments, just state revenue sharing and grants of $534,000. Total revenues were $992,000. Next, we have our expenditures. We have amounts spent for general government of $202,000, public safety $164,000, transportation $142,000, culture and recreation $1,600. Then you had capital outlay, which means amounts expended for capital projects, for public safety or for capital assets like vehicles, $136,000 for public safety and $98,000 for transportation department. This brought your total expenses for the year to $745,000. When you take that away from the $992,000 of revenue, you're left with $247,000 net income at the end of the year. This increased your net worth from $134,000 to $382,000 at year end. So very good operating results for your governmental fund. Let's skip ahead 2 pages to the proprietary fund statement of net position. This is where your water, sewer, and garbage financial data is displayed. It shows your assets and your liabilities and the difference between those, which is your net position, and that's basically like your net worth in this case. For your assets, you had current assets of $382,000. Those are amounts that are easily accessible. You have non-current assets, which were exclusively restricted cash balances that have to be used for specific purposes, such as debt service and customer deposits of $169,000. Next, you had your assets. Your total capital assets less depreciation was $8.5 million. Your total assets altogether were $9 million. Next, you have your liabilities. You have current, or your regular current liabilities, which were $78,000, such as accounts payable and amounts due. And then you have current liabilities that are payable from your restricted assets, such as debt service payments that will be due within the next year and customer deposits for utilities of $119,000. Total, so next page, we have our long-term liabilities. These are your, primarily your notes and bonds payable, which total $904,000. Total liabilities for the year were $1.1 million. Next is your net position, which is your assets minus your liabilities, your net worth. This was $7.9 million, but this was broken up into three main categories. The first one is investment in capital assets of $7.5 million. This represents funds that are invested in those capital assets. You can't necessarily liquidate those. You can't sell the pipes that are in the ground for money, so you can't touch that. Next, you have your amounts that are restricted for debt service of $169,000. And then finally, your unrestricted balances, which represents amounts that you can use to fund ongoing operations of $229,000. This represents approximately 6 months of operating expenditures, so you have sufficient reserves for your proprietary fund as well, which is your water and sewer garbage. Next page, we have our statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. This is like a profit and loss for the year for water, sewer, garbage. It shows your operating revenues for each one of those, and your expenses, and then your non-operating expenses down below that. So first, let's start with your revenues. You have water utility revenue of $146,000, sewer of $163,000, solid waste of $122,000. The total of all your revenues is $432,000. Next, we have our operating expenses. For the water utility, you had $32,000 and $154,000 for personnel and operating. This totaled $186,000. When you take that away from your revenue, you're left with a profit for water, or a loss for water of $40,000. For garbage, you had $88,000 in expenses, which when you take that away from your revenue, you're left with a $34,000 profit. And for sewer, you had $199,000 in expenses, which when you take that away from your $122,000 in revenue, you're left with a $36,000 loss. So water and sewer both were running about a $35,000 to $40,000 loss each, total of about, $76,000. Okay? But I think that's partly been ameliorated by adding in increasing fees in the future. Okay. This brought your operating loss, so loss from operations, to a loss of $41,000 for the year. Then we have your non-operating revenues and expenses. These total $2.6 million, which was primarily grant revenue that you received from the state. This brought your total increase in net position to $2.6 million. Your net position at the beginning of the year was $5.3 million. This increased it to $7.9 million net worth as of year end. Move on to the next page. This is our statement of cash flows. I'm just going to draw your attention to a number in the middle of the page, which is the net change in cash, which was $8,500. So you had a slight increase in cash, basically break even on the cash basis for the year. Move on to the next page. This is the notes to the financial statements. All those financial statements we just looked at the bottom of them, it says see notes to financial statements. That's because those are just the numbers. They don't tell you really the policies, procedures, and anything about the organization as a whole. This is kind of like the meat on the bones. It's very, very detailed. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but I will point out a few notes that might be of interest to you to look at on your own time. On page 39, we have our note 6, which is capital assets. These notes provide a summary for your governmental assets and your business type assets, which is your water, sewer, and garbage, for the year, and show all the different additions and deletions to those assets and the accumulated depreciation on those assets, which shows how much those assets have been used up over time. Next, on page 43, we have the first table on that page is a long-term debt schedule. This shows your different loans and the different amounts that at the beginning of the year started at $996,000, and you paid approximately $40,000 off, leaving about $958,000 remaining on loans and other long-term liabilities for the year for your, business type activities. Let's move on to page 50. This is the last page of your budget versus actual report. This shows your total budgeted expenditures were 1.8 million, and you only spent $745,000, which means that you had, you spent almost $1 million less than what you had originally budgeted. Let's move on to page 53. This is your scheduled expenditures of federal awards and state financial assistance. We show your federal and state grants. It shows that you spent $2.6 million on your small community wastewater facilities grant, and you had 2 SCOP grants for $314,000 and $116,000, bringing your total grants received to $3,097,000. Let's move on to page 55. Because you spent over $750,000 in state financial assistance, we're required to do a single audit for, and select a major program for your grants, which was small community wastewater facility grant program. And on page 55 is our report on that program. It says that in our opinion, the town complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements for that program. Next, let's move on to page 58. At the top section on the financial statements we'll cover in a minute. That's kind of redundant information, it's required to be there though. Next is the section that says state financial assistance. It says that we had an unmodified opinion, which is a good opinion on your report. There were no issues and there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified with the program. And it identifies the program down below and its financial assistance number, which is 37.075 for the year. Next, let's move on to page 60. This is our report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance. It says that we did identify certain deficiencies in internal controls in our accompanying schedule of findings, and that we've identified 2 material weaknesses and 2 significant deficiencies. Those were both repeat findings from the prior year. We'll cover those in a little more detail in a minute. Let's go on to page 62.
When you say prior year, you mean 1920?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's right here on page 62. We have all our prior year findings, and you can see which ones were corrected and not. Number 2018-001 was corrected. 2019-001 was not corrected. 2019-002 was not corrected. 2019-003 was not corrected. And 2019-004 was corrected. 2020-01 was corrected. And 2020-002 was not corrected. So there were 7 findings, 3 were corrected, 4 remain uncorrected, and there was no additional current year findings. Let's move on to page 64, the management letter. Here we reference the current and prior year findings on the previous schedule, but also there's a financial emergency review to determine whether there was any financial condition that was that needed to be discussed, and we determined that the town did not meet any conditions of a financial emergency, so that's good. And on the next page, we have our independent accountants report, which is on investments of public funds, which there's a certain Florida statute that relates to how those funds can be invested, and we found the town was in compliance with those statutes. On the next page, we have our communications with those in charge of governance letter. This is a general letter that just kind of goes over some general things in the audit, but I will draw your attention to the difficulties encountered during the audit, which was, we had difficulty obtaining certain supporting documentation for different balances during our audit, which was also related to one of the findings as well. But outside of that, concludes my review. I will say though that we did receive the work papers and documents for the 22 audit, and we should be working on that shortly. Should be done hopefully by the end of January.
Oh, boy.
So you'll be all caught up once that's done.
You work in a fast, time.
Trying hard.
So, we appreciated everything and glad to hear that this is done and the next one is on the way. Catching up.
Y'all have any questions for me?
No? Does the council have any questions?
No,
Turn it to us all.
I just wanna say, this was my first year here, for this to have a good audit, thank you. Coming in and, yeah.
Right. All right,
But all
Yes,
this
Mr.
is
Day.
what we-
Can I ask you a couple of questions about the audit,
sure.
or should I wait and do it in my 5 minutes?
We don't have the answers, is it, will he need the answers? Will he
He
need
can
the
give
answers?
me the answer, just. Sir, in your audit, are you aware of the operational audit conducted by the Auditor General of the State?
Yes.
What you were doing in New York? What additional procedures did you do to get around the fact that the bank account for the enterprise fund had not been reconciled in 34 months, I believe?
That's 18 and 19.
But as of May of 23, the enterprise fund was where the water and sewer funds go, deposit, had not been reconciled in 34 months according to the state auditor. How did you work around that in your procedures and not qualify your opinion?
Okay, so, when we look at, I should move this, I don't know, okay, I'll talk this way. When we looked at the bank statements, you know, even though the bank reconciliations hadn't been done, there wasn't a material amount of outstanding transactions that we were able to reconcile it back to the bank on our own without having to go through, yes, like on the individual months. We didn't go re-reconcile that whole period, but we did agree the records back to the ledgers, and were able to determine that there wasn't any material differences between those.
Okay, how about the general fund?
It's the same.
Do you know, and this wasn't on the agenda proceeding, so I'm doing this from memory. Do you recall why the ad valorem tax revenue was roughly 26,000 this year? The year you audited, and the prior year it was roughly 75?
I'm not sure off the top of my head on that one. I mean, that would be something I'd have
It
to.
seems very odd, but I would just like to, what happened?
Okay, so you're
You
saying.
can get back with me on that, but in your report, I forget which schedule it is, I think it's near the back. You show ad valorem tax revenue of roughly $26,000, the prior year was about 76, and the year before that roughly 80, so did somebody just stop paying their property taxes, or how did you miss something that's significant in that and handle the review procedures?
I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure off the top of my head. It's something
We'll
that,
find out.
you know, we could do.
You need to know that.
Yeah, we can do that, you know, you could talk with the town, do public records requests, and we can talk with them and get whatever information you're looking for on that, if they need help with that, okay?
Did you do any testing on the water and sewer accounts,
Yes, we do.
payments and receipts?
Mhm.
Did you find any accounts that were not being paid, that were having service?
So, what we don't do, I guess what you would say is, we don't review every account, is what I'd say. We don't review every single account. We do samples and tests, and, you know, there may have been a few that, you know, might have looked like they might have been a little late, but, you know, nothing, that we think would have materially misstated the financial statements.
Well, the Auditor General selected the period October of 21 to December of 22 to sample. And in that period of time, he pulled one sample where a person was receiving services but was not billed, so he expanded the scope.
Mhm.
Did you do any procedures in your audit that caused you to have to expand your scope for testing?
You know.
On anything, not just
So-
in water and sewer?
So, what I'd say is that we already went into this with full scope procedures because of the disclaimer in the prior year, so we kind of already were doing a higher level of procedures.
The fact that the entire report had a disclaimer opinion, which is not an audit for 2019, we agree on that, right?
Well, it's basically saying that we couldn't
It doesn't.
We couldn't provide any assurance as to the accuracy of the financial statements, they're just what records there was, but it was not, we didn't provide any assurance on it, so no, it's like not unaudited, basically.
So I believe yesterday the chairman of the audit committee used the word scathing on the report he did on the operational audit he did on the town. So how does that reconcile with the fact that you went from a disclaimer opinion on the enterprise and the general fund in 2020 and 21, you gave an unqualified opinion? How do you reconcile those two reports?
Yeah. So what I'd say to that is that, in the prior year, well, before this audit, is that, we were unable to obtain evidence to be able to support, balances and things like that for our audit. And this audit was different in that we were, even though we might not have had all the records as fast as we wanted to, we had difficulty getting the records and things like that to compile a report. We were able to get sufficient appropriate audit evidence to be able to disclose our opinion, but we were not, so that's what, I guess, what was different. And yes, there was definitely operational issues as disclosed by their report. But what our report is primarily to determine whether the financial statements are in fact accurate or not, whether they're materially misstated or not. And we think that with the evidence that we were able to gather, that the financial statements were accurately prepared outside of the fixed assets area.
What was your materiality level?
I'd have to pull up my records to find that, and, normally we don't always, it's not something we normally like, hey, this is what our materiality level is, just because, what can happen is, then our clients would be like, oh, well, if I can just push a transaction in underneath this amount or do whatever. So normally it's not something we like to discuss, and it is something that's like looked at in our peer review, because we have to undergo an audit as a part of, us being able to audit others.
Could you expand on, you had some difficulty in obtaining records, you just said that just a minute ago. What, can you expand on that?
Sorry.
Huh?
Never mind, go ahead.
Just that, you know, it's, sometimes, you know, normally we would expect to come into an audit and have all our documentation, ready to go for all our different account balances and assertions. And so when we go through those, you know, we'd like to have those done and ready to go. And then, you know, what we, you know, it, you know, was just more a laborious process of trying to, you know, search for, find where to get the things and do this and that and the other, just to get back to where we could. Because like I said, it wasn't like we could just walk in and say, hey, here's the information. It was a process. It took a lot more effort than just, you know, here's the stuff to test, and we could pick our samples and get it immediately. It wasn't you know, easy like that.
What percentage of your field work was done here versus out of a shoebox, essentially?
What do you mean out of a shoebox?
How many more questions? You got a couple of
Maybe
questions.
you can send them.
Maybe you can send him an email of questions, and then he can have.
I think the citizens want to know answers
But
about
you can
audit,
tell
given,
them, you can tell them
given,
how you send it.
You're gonna come back and tell them, I'm sure, so,
what?
I mean, you're hoping.
We gonna do the whole meeting.
Well, okay, I have one final question. When's the last time we did an audit where a bank account had not been reconciled for over 32 months? Do you have other clients similar to that?
I've had a few nonprofits be like that where it was really bad before, but,
So you're saying this is really bad?
It was, because it wasn't on our administration team.
we disclaimed our opinion on the
It was
Friday.
bad, Scott, and it wasn't on this administration. You're trying to lead the public to believe that everything that was prior to us. And you're trying to mislead the public into believing that it's on us, and it's not.
The public is gonna know that the Auditor General did a report, he did his testing from the period October 21 to December 22, and internal controls are non-existent. I'm just trying to, so if they were not existent during that period of time, did things get worse from October 21 to 22, or are they the same when he was doing his audit?
When he said that they did not, they improved.
But I think you just said we're bad, but you gave us an unqualified opinion.
I didn't give you an unqualified opinion, I gave you a qualified opinion, there's a difference.
Well, you gave
And
us,
we had, you know, substantial findings in our schedule of findings.
but you didn't have any additional findings for this year.
This is gonna be the last question that you answer, Mr. Taylor.
I think what we see is generally, if I had to summarize everything, is we see a general improvement under the new administration. There's things that were problematic in the past that are being corrected, and I think we're seeing a hopeful future here. But yes, there was a lot of problems in the past, and I think we're seeing our reports. This report is a little better than the last one, and hopefully the next one will be an unmodified or unqualified opinion, and there won't be any issues, is what I'm hoping for. But you know, some of these things are working their way out of the system, And it does take a little time, and, you know, I understand your concerns, there definitely was concerning stuff going on, and I think we see with the new administration that things are starting to get better.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Taylor, we
Thank
appreciate
you,
you.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
Does the council have anything? I'm sure nothing else.
Well, thank you for having me, I appreciate it.
You're
Y'all have a blessed
welcome, have a
evening.
good evening. All right, so moving on, I guess we have no citizens from the floor since Mr. Day answered all the questions he has on here for audit. We will move on to the approval of the minutes from the November 14th, 2023 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for November 14th, 2023?
I hereby approve the minutes for November 14, 2023.
Can I get a second on the motion? Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, no old business. New business is the Hamilton County Interlocal Agreement for Code Enforcement. Vanessa? Audre?
Okay, in Scott's defense from last meeting, he did ask about the agreement. It was a different agreement than what I had thought it was, and in talking with, Mr. Decker, the attorney there for the county, this is what has been, it was left in our former attorney's inbox, and he thought he sent it to us. So we could not get it, so we talked with, Attorney Decker. I talked with him last week before last, and he did send this. So, the information that the code enforcement, person for Hamilton County, he did not give us this particular agreement, but he gave us some general information. So this particular interlocal agreement that I'm going to pass around for signatures from our mayor and our council, folks that are there, myself, it's pretty much what Matthew had sent, I guess about 2 weeks ago, but this was not attached to it. So we are gonna go through this today, and it is an interlocal agreement. If you do wanna see it, I do have it, electronically, and I can send it to you. It's just talking about this, code enforcement being on a temporary basis, but it will hopefully lead into something more substantial since we've had that particular announcement out. Matter of fact, we took it out of the budget because it's been in the planning stages in terms of trying to get somebody for code enforcement that we thought we had hired a year or so ago that could not, fulfill the obligation of being, a part of this, administration. So he tried to give us some information on how to get to it, but we have nobody to apply for this particular position. So the county, we're thankful that they're considering doing this for us at a particular cost. And I think it's $50 and $25, but, again,
No,
it's
it's
something, is it 50?
I don't see the 25, it's 50.
It's 50 now, okay.
For,
So,
each incident or investigation.
yes, so any call, which is still very inexpensive, I think, on our part if we need it, because we really need it. So again, this is an interlocal agreement with Hamilton County providing code enforcement services, and if you do want a copy, I do have it, but I'm gonna have a signed copy tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, for the departmental and administrative comments, any comments from the public?
Any comments from the public?
On what subject?
Anything, this is at the part here with the, right after new business.
Did we skip the 5 minutes?
Oh, you got some comments? Nobody gave me anything, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, you have one,
Oh,
you have
I'm sorry.
audit status, I mean, like,
No,
we just went over that.
No, that was not my question. That was questioning the auditor. That was not my 5 minutes.
Okay.
So what do you wanna discuss? On here says audit status. Is that not what you wanna discuss?
I want to discuss the status of the 22 audit.
He just gave us that and said that it's gonna be done
That's the 21
He
audit.
said 22 will be
done by January.
by the end of January.
I would like my 5 minutes.
Go ahead, Scott.
Scott Gay, 10565 Kendrick Street, White Springs, Florida. It was good to see the town manager in Tallahassee yesterday interacting with the legislative committee. I think she did a good job, and I think they were glad to see you there, and I think everybody came out of there learning something. I got a few questions, Mayor. One of them just got answered by the auditor, so I want to ask that. The second question is, does the town have an audit committee?
No, we do not.
do not have an audit committee. Are you aware of statute 218.391, parent and 2, the governing body of the municipality shall establish an audit committee? You aware of that?
I am familiar with that, and we have had audit committees in the past, and the reason we did not have time to get an audit committee this year is because we were in dire needs of an audit being done and getting an actual audit.
Is there an exception for being in dire need in section 218 for not having an audit committee?
It may not be in 2018, when I talked to
But
the
when
wife
we-
of the legislative head, she also told me, go ahead and get you an auditor, because you cannot afford to sit here and wait and do an audit committee. Sometimes you have to circumvent the process in order to get it done. We have the audit, we were behind that audit because when I came in 21, I had to do 18 and 19 audit, so that put 21 audit behind. That's why you see the 34 months or whatever that you're saying. So now that also, we couldn't continue with the 22 audit until we got the 21 done. So now we have to get 21 done. So listen, if they already did the 21 audit, let's go ahead and get 22, so we don't get penalized for not having the 22, trying to wait and see if we're gonna get an audit committee.
Well,
And that came
I'm
from the
not,
Auditor General's office, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, that's fine, I just wonder what authority you did in the audit committee, but I'm volunteering this evening to be on the audit committee, and I'll turn in my application
Okay.
tomorrow.
They're under, how long are they under contract for? 3?
Yeah, they had to do the ones we had deleted.
Do you have, one time I'd asked for the, engagement letter for the 2019 audit, you were not able to locate it, and I understand that. Do you have the engagement letter for the 21, 20, and 22 audit for Mr. Powell?
We do.
Okay, can I put that on my request? What was the fee for the audit 2021?
It was 13,000, it was the lowest they could.
Okay. Mayor, have you read the Auditor General's report in its entirety?
I have read it.
Ms. Berry, have you?
Have I read the whole thing?
Yes, ma'am.
No, not the whole, but most of it, yes.
Okay. Ms. Pope, have you?
Ms. Pope, I haven't read the whole thing.
Okay. On the water and sewer accounts, are you aware that the Auditor General found some accounts that were not paid and they were having service?
I am aware of that, and I can also tell you that they also found that, 5 customers or 8 were supposed to be paying water, paying sewer rate. And out of the 8 customers, I was the only customer that have been paying that rate since it was established, out of the 8.
And since then, every month, Ms. Cynethia go through the records to make sure that everybody that has a water bill. Also, they also pulled all the, water meters from vacant properties that we were getting a water bill when people weren't there. So that's where that problem came from, but we pulled all those meters. How many we pulled, 85? Eighty-five.
What does that mean, you pulled them, they were there and people were using, could use
It's-
water?
Nobody's there, but we pulled all the vacant meters, so we won't have any issues
So we
with
won't have
people
any
saying that
issues.
it's water there when it's not.
Could, if someone asked for a listing of water meter numbers with associated with addresses, could you produce that?
Your account number is associated with your address.
And I don't think you can give those people information out.
Well, I don't need names, I wouldn't need names, I would just need
What
meter
is it
number.
you asking for?
He want the meter number.
A meter number and the associated address, would that be possible?
I don't know about.
You-
don't
each
think it's-
meter-
The
you
meter
want
number
each
is
meter
associated
number.
with the account number.
Yeah.
They're associated with the account number.
You can't do that.
Okay.
There's no list of like meter numbers, like Scott gave meter numbers is.
No, Scott Gay's meter number is gonna, my meter number is gonna say, my account number is 1-1400, and it's gonna have my meter number.
I just
on
wanna
it.
know if there's a meter number associated with a specific address, that's all.
Every account has a meter
Okay.
associated with it.
I will not belabor the point.
And if
I don't
we-
understand
we
what
say
else to
about people
say.
not paying their bill, we can't make people pay the bill, all we can do is cut them off.
That's it.
How many people get cut off during the year? How many people got cut off in the last 2 months for
How
not
many,
paying?
how many people got on the cutoff list? But, about 35, and then they go play, go get.
No, don't get, you just an estimate, we're
But I'm
not
just saying,
going
you
to.
think we just let people have, free water?
Well, I'm looking at the auditor's report.
You looking at all the
Your
reports.
time is up, now that's it, time is up, moving on. Any other comments from the public?
Yes,
No, you did not have go ahead.
Audrey told me I didn't need to have
Go
a piece.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Let them go, let them go.
What comment do you have, Mr. Griffin?
Fine, thank you. I have some stuff to hand out.
No, let me go ahead and get this.
That was the same thing, I think.
If you'll put them on the corner of the tables in front of everybody.
Thank you. There's that. One for each couple.
For who, Joe?
Huh?
One for who?
Each couple.
Each person.
Each person. Couple.
There's no, I'm not a couple up there with anybody.
Oh, people.
And I have papers.
Joe, we've seen those papers, you brought them before.
Have you seen this paper?
Well, on the
No,
page,
you haven't.
Y'all put me on the front page with falsifying information talking about 2018-19 when I wasn't even working here.
And you
It's
brought
got
that
nothing to do
paper
with
before.
2018.
Well, I don't care, the newspaper is not the gospel, you heard the auditor report. Y'all send the paper, whatever y'all wanna send the paper. Thank you.
Do you want a copy?
This is actually our competitor.
That has some money.
The man just said no money was.
Don't want a copy?
They gonna make, number one, they gonna make the audit report be false, they gonna make me be stealing some
Thank
money,
you.
they gonna make some. I know, it don't matter what we do, we can put the town on good financial standing, they gonna still try to find something, it's always something.
So, Joe, you have no comment because I'm not waiting for you to pass out paper.
You will wait my 5 minutes.
It's
See?
your time. It's your time.
Oh, my goodness.
That's her
Oh, my goodness.
being her.
No. That language is not necessary.
He will be removed if he keeps it up.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And you may keep these.
This is the first time the ladies did a report ever been interested in the right for y'all call them, keep calling. They call, everybody call them, go ahead, call
They drove an hour and a half to go.
them. No, I'm talking about calling, ladies did a report, they wanna put up something. But the man say, hey, we ain't good financial standing.
And the meeting is,
Okay, we did 5 minutes, right?
I'm sorry when you talk. So you got about 30 more seconds.
Thank you.
any more comments from the public? Yes, Ms. Nicole.
I just wanted to invite everybody, it's kind of late, but I am gonna do breakfast with Santa, it's gonna be on the 23rd in Glass Kitchen. The reason I'm saying it so late is because there was so much going on at the park with the park manager and his personal life, and everything was so chaotic out there. But I do need volunteers and I am accepting donations. It's December the 23rd, and it starts at 10.
And then oblige.
Yeah, up to age from 0 to 13.
That's the Stephen Foster.
Never Glass Kitchen.
Any other public comments? No? Steve?
I don't have nothing this time, I'm being paid.
Ray?
Oh,
Vanessa?
No, I do wanna tell Miss Cynethia, all y'all, I'm very appreciative of y'all. I am ecstatic about this report. You all do a lovely job. Thank you all. You too, Ray.
Appreciate you.
I just wanna say we had a nice parade. I've been hearing lots of reports about it, that it's getting better and better every year. I don't have any other announcements I can see. Well, we won't see anybody until the new year. You have something?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
May I?
Yes, go ahead. And then
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is for the first time here, and I appreciate your allowing me the time. Let me apologize.
Introduce
Let
yourself.
me apologize to you, okay, for Ruise, My name is Kathi Vaughn-Malpress. Kathi Vaughn-Malpress. Yes. I am a native of Hamilton County. I grew up in Jackson. And I am now living in Jacksonville.
I am Dr. Kathi Vaughn-Malpress.
Yes, put the handle on it.
It is not honorary, I earned all of it.
Right.
It was not easy. I'm here to share my long concern and interest on Hamilton County and especially White. I have been miserable ever since the school was taken away. I have voiced my opinion, and you all know how long ago that's been. My daddy, and some of you may remember my daddy, Mr. Bubba Vaughn, Slicks, he owns Slicks Welding Shop. Long time ago. But my daddy used to say, excuse me, opinions are like behinds, everybody got them, and most of them stink. Okay, so, my opinion about the school, to some may stink. But my concern is there are children in this community that are getting on the bus at 6:20 or so in the morning. And they're riding on that bus an hour to school. You gotta know they're tired when they get there. These are elementary kids.
Yeah.
I've taught in the public school for 28 years. I've been in post-secondary education at the university. I told someone the other day, 17 years ago, they said, no, Dr. Vaughn, you've been here 25 years, really? Okay, so, yeah. So, education is a passion for me, and especially with the little one. I also serve on the board of education and certification for the state board, Department of Ed. Naturally, I'm always gonna be looking at Hamilton County. Always. The statistics, our education, I'm always right into it. I have stood and debated on the Senate floor for Hamilton County. I will always do that. I want you to know that my concern is the kids getting on the bus early in the morning, they get to school, and then no wonder they can't learn, no wonder they're having problems, they're tired. They're tired. There's a bishop and his wife who have a school in Jacksonville that I've shared that concern. They are also interested in this area. We are procuring ideas, opportunities. We're exploring opportunities to see exactly what we can do for the children in this community, because they just shouldn't have to ride the bus so far to get to night, getting on the bus to go to school, and night getting back. Parents are working, and so they're not getting to bed on time because people come home, they got lives to live, they got food to do, and so much is going on, you know? So, we're going to be in and out of your community. Hopefully we'll be talking to some of the community persons. I've met with Mr. Bullitt a number of times, and we're gonna be seeing exactly what we can do in terms of getting a location or just constructing something to have a school. Okay? I want you to know.
That's awesome.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
That's been a concern for most of the citizens here when they closed that school. It was a decision by the Hamilton County School Board.
I know.
You know, and the previous mayor, Helen Miller, she did fight to do a charter school, all of that, and they fought against her on every level. So we appreciate, you know, you thinking.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I'm a proponent for public schools. And in the beginning, in that day, I know the politics of it, you know? So I had a problem with them pulling money from public schools to put in charter. But you know, at some point, you just recognize you can't beat City Hall, you know? So you make the best of it. And the best of it at this point will be a charter school, you know? So my thing is for the children to learn, that's all, you know? I do have a company, the Optimist Literacy Institute. I've had my company since 2008. And our motto is, when children don't learn the way we teach the way they learn. And so this is what we're gonna do, you know? And we'll be, hopefully we will be able to encompass your support, your assistance in all that it is, because it's our children, predominantly the children that look like me.
Right.
Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Malpress,
And I do have, as I said, Mr. White in as well.
I want to introduce you at the end of the meeting to the man that just bought the school.
He's here,
And
he's
he's
on.
He's
opening
here. I've
this, so
already
we-
spoken to him,
okay.
yes.
He's
He
willing.
told me she was coming.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alright, so yeah, we won't be back until after the new year, so I just hope everybody have a safe and happy holidays. I know I will enjoy, I am going on a cruise on Saturday, and I will be out of commission. And so, nothing else from me. Alright, nothing.
Just, if anything you want concerning this meeting or any other meetings, just let me know, send me an email, and I'll get any copy of anything that you need.
What do you do?
That's it.
Alright, meeting adjourned at 7:22 p.m.